Hello, my beautiful friend. Welcome back to another episode of Radiant Womanhood. Today, I want to talk about something that's kind of heavy on my heart lately or right now. And I think it's something that so many of us can relate to right now, or at least a lot of us can. We just went through a major hurricane, and while my family and I made it through okay, praise because we are okay. I am struck right now by the contrast between the devastation around us and the gratitude for our safety and also the weight of daily life that hasn't paused. The schools are open, work needs to be done, and then even amidst all of this, life must continue. And yet, how do we balance it all when we're feeling overwhelmed and tired? And I think a lot of us can relate to feeling caught in this tension between being thankful and feeling exhausted, between wanting to help others and realizing sometimes we're struggling just to keep our own heads above water. And I want to remind you today that sometimes it's okay to feel both. Today, I am sharing some thoughts because we're in the midst of it right now and some tips on how we can move forward with grace, even when life feels like it's pulling us in hundreds of different directions. And I want to start by acknowledging this feeling. If you're feeling tired, if you're weary, if you're feeling like it's all just too much, you're not alone. Sometimes the hardest thing is just allowing ourselves to feel. We are so conditioned to think that we always have to be strong, we always have to be in control. But giving ourselves permission to be human is a crucial first step. And that's something that I have been doing this last week. And we'll see if I can get through this episode even without tears, because that's something that's also, it's part of me and how I express emotions. And when we're going through something so big, as far as this hurricane affecting our area, we've never had one that has affected our area quite like this. And also so many areas of people that are close to us. And I know that our country has gone through hurricanes before, and it's one of those seasons of going through it for me. So that's where I'm coming from, so you can know where I'm coming from. But it applies to any big disruption or life event. After a major life event for us, like a hurricane or any disruption, there's often an expectation that we should just jump back into the swing of things. But truth is our bodies and our minds are still processing what we've been through. There's an emotional load that we carry when we face those moments of uncertainty. And it doesn't just disappear because the skies are clear again. We still have responsibilities, but that doesn't mean that we're not allowed to pause for a second, that we're not allowed to take a breath and acknowledge what we've just gone through. So that's what I want to talk about today. And maybe it is the hurricane that you're recovering from, but maybe it's another life event. Maybe it's something else that feels overwhelming to you right now. And now we're going to get into, what do I do? What do I do when I feel overwhelmed, when I feel tired, when I feel like it's hard to even catch up to maybe where I was before this disruption happened in my life? The first thing I want to share about is priorities. And I know we've talked about priorities in many different aspects and facets before. But when life feels overwhelming, I like to think about priorities in layers. And for a moment now, we're at the point where it's like, let's get down to the core of those layers. That first layer, what's essential? For me, the first is my family's well-being and health and making sure our basic needs are met. When everything else feels like too much, I take a step and focus on the essentials. What are those essentials for you? What are those essentials for me? What can I let go of, at least for now? That's the thing. Our priorities can shift and change according to our seasons. And when you're in a season of this life disruption, when you're in a season of overwhelm, then for now, maybe some of the extra tasks on my to-do list aren't as urgent. Maybe the house being spotless and clean isn't as urgent as when we normally have more time or more energy to focus on different things. But when you simplify your focus, it helps you to reduce that mental load, even if it's just a little bit. So I want you to take just a moment and think about what your essentials are. Write them down if you can, jot a quick note in your app, a phone app or something, but remember that you don't have to do everything right now. It's okay to let some things wait. The next thing to remember in these times is we're meant to lean on others. This time has reminded me of the importance of community. And this is what I mean by I'm not sure if I can get through this without tears. Hmm. After the hurricane came through, which did take a turn that we weren't quite expecting the magnitude of and the location of, but neighbors were checking on each other. It was beautiful to see the community come together. Neighbors that had lifted trucks were helping to rescue people that needed rescuing, lending a hand, even just offering a smile. When we're overwhelmed, we can easily feel isolated in our struggles. And so, while for me, my experience right now is coming out of speaking to a hurricane, I want you to remember that that's not all that this applies to. It's whatever you're going through in a season of overwhelm. I want to encourage you to reach out, to ask for help when you need it. Sometimes that help might just be a friend to listen to while you vent, or maybe someone taking a small task off of your plate, which is what we've seen so much happen. The people in our lives genuinely want to help, but we have to be brave enough to ask. And on the flip side, in being able to help others, even in small ways, it brings a sense of connection and purpose that can be healing even while you're in your own state of overwhelm. Maybe it's dropping off a meal for a neighbor or sharing some of the supplies that you stocked up on. As our family spent the weekend pitching in to help those around us, even my son said, I feel really good that I was able to help. And it's true, it brings this sense of fulfillment and purpose, and even an extended sense of gratitude. Even if we're in a little bit of a state of overwhelm, it brings us gratitude to be able to reach out a hand to help someone else. And it doesn't always have to be big. Currently, we are just doing some laundry for a family that lost everything in their ability to do the laundry. So their clothes that were soaked, we are washing for them. And I've seen that over and over. Neighbors posting, drop your clothes off, or I'll pick up your clothes, I'll wash them for you. Let's help, cleaning out homes and houses that need to be emptied. But small gestures of kindness just begin to ripple out in beautiful ways. So community, lean on community and become that community for someone else. And another thing, tip number 3, the third thing I want to share is the importance of rest and joy, especially when we're feeling tired. Now, I know it's tempting to think that that means doing nothing all day. Like, I need a day. Have you ever heard someone say, I need a day? Okay, well, yes, maybe there are times that's exactly what we need. For me, it doesn't always seem like that's achievable. We have a big family. That's just not what it is. And there are also sometimes where what we need the most is small, meaningful breaks. Breaks with intention. We actually have a whole podcast episode about this, and we can link it in the show notes. But talking about take 5 minutes to sit down with a cup of tea or step outside and feel the breeze on your face. Laugh with your kids. These small moments of joy, of being present. It's a restorative break because you're being present in that moment. And that's what's restorative. When we're tired, sometimes we overlook the things that fill our cups because they feel like extra work. So we turn to things that give us a quick dopamine hit, like scrolling social media. But studies have shown that usually drains your energy reserves, that gives you energy. So in these tiny moments, take a deep breath. Listen to your favorite song, maybe, even while you're making dinner. It can remind us that there is lightness, even here. One expected blessing for me, and it was this little thing, just a few minutes, but it so refilled my cup, was receiving a phone call just after the hurricane had passed our area from my daughter, who is currently in boot camp. And if you know anything about Army boot camp, it's not like they just have their phones. They don't get to call. It's not a thing where it's, whenever they want, they get to call. No. But I am so grateful that they allowed those with family in affected areas to call. And my heart still breaks for those who haven't been able to reach their families or loved ones. But as soon as I answered and told her we were okay, she was overwhelmed with gratitude. And both of us were trying to talk through tears at that time, realizing like everyone is okay. Our family's all right. And we were able to talk for just a few minutes. And those small moments of joy were such a light, such a restorative time to my day. I didn't try to multitask and think about other things or do other things. It was being present in that moment of joy with what's in front of me. And so that's tip number 3 is just to find those moments of rest and joy, even in the midst. And finally, tip number 4, this is something I really want to take just a few moments and dive into, is I want to touch on gratitude. It is such a powerful practice, but can also be challenging when life is feeling demanding, right? And I think it's okay to have days when gratitude is quiet, when you simply acknowledge, I am thankful that we made it. I'm thankful we made it through, and that's enough for today. We can be grateful while still feeling overwhelmed. Gratitude doesn't cancel out the difficulty. It just helps us see that there's more than just the hard parts. Gratitude doesn't erase our struggles, but it brings balance by reminding us that even amidst the storm, there are still things worth appreciating. And there's actually so much science behind this idea of gratitude. Behind gratitude, studies have shown that practicing gratitude can significantly impact our mental health. One study is from the University of California, conducted by Dr. Robert Emmons. And so he's one of the leading researchers spending his time and focus researching gratitude. Can you imagine that? That's what you focus on. I think that's amazing. But he found that people who kept a weekly gratitude journal reported fewer physical symptoms. Guys, physical symptoms in your body by keeping a weekly gratitude journal. They felt better about their lives as a whole and were more optimistic about the future compared to those who focused on the negatives or even just on the things I have to do. Our last episode talked all about the difference between I should and kind of the negative from that. I have to do this. I should do this compared to I could. Just this little mindset shift. So check out that episode as well. But for those who are living gratitude compared to those who focus on the negatives or things I have to do is such a difference in even their physical bodies. And this tells us that gratitude isn't about ignoring our challenges, but it's a shift in perspective to also notice the positive, to notice the things that we can be grateful for. There's also evidence showing that gratitude has a measurable effect on our brain. There's a study by Indiana University that found that people who wrote gratitude letters showed greater activation in the medial prefrontal cortex. So it's the area of the brain associated with learning and decision-making, even months after the practice. So just think, by taking a few moments to practice gratitude, we can actually train our brains to become more resilient over time. We can train our brains by practicing gratitude. And I say practice because it is something that we get to learn to do. It's something that we intentionally set out to do. And so in these moments of overwhelm, it can almost feel dismissive to say, be grateful, or I'm grateful that we're okay. And it's not just a light-hearted thing. Like, there is gratitude for the place that we're at right now in our lives and in our home and in our family, even with feeling this overwhelm. But we don't want to dismiss it as if gratitude is just a magic cure that makes the tough stuff disappear, because it's not. It doesn't make anything disappear. But the beautiful thing about gratitude is that it works alongside our difficulties. It helps us to create a more balanced narrative of our lives. Imagine this. Imagine if every day, the only thing that we focused on were the challenges, the bad things. I have to do this. I need to do that. This isn't working. This is bad. Over time, our minds would be conditioned to see only the struggles. We're training our brain. And it would be easy to miss those tiny glimmers of light. But gratitude helps us to not overlook those moments. It's like taking a flashlight and shining it in the corners that we might otherwise miss, illuminating the good that exists right beside the hard. So, one simple, effective way, I know we've talked about this before, but to bring gratitude into your daily routine is something that I like to call 3 good things practice. And sometimes we do this like at dinner with our family. Sometimes it's journaling. I mean, I like to write it down. Sometimes my husband and I will go for a walk, and usually it's in the morning, but we'll talk about the things that we're grateful for. But as far as writing it down at the end of each day, take a moment and write down 3 things that went well or that you're thankful for. And they don't have to be big. It could be as simple, and especially when you're feeling overwhelmed, keep it simple. Simple as a good cup of coffee, a warm hug from your child, or even just a moment where you got to sit quietly. And it's not even just me. So I started doing this practice, and it's been researched by Dr. Martin Seligman, and he's a psychologist known as a pioneer in the field of positive psychology. But this practice has shown to improve well-being and decrease depressive symptoms. What is it doing? It's not changing anything about your circumstances or where you're at, but it's spending just a few moments reflecting on the positive things. And through that, you are training your mind to recognize the good, even in challenging seasons. We are literally retraining our brain to see the good when we begin to practice gratitude. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, I encourage you to try this. The next time that you are stuck in a moment of stress or exhaustion, or even this feeling of, I can't even pause, take a deep breath, and think of one thing, just one, that you're grateful for. It could be something as simple as the roof over your head. And I'm telling you what, through a storm, that is absolutely something to be grateful for. Or the fact that you have the strength to face another day, because friend, I'm telling you, you can do this. You can do these hard things. But notice in that moment, when you take a breath, when you pause for just a moment, instead of letting your brain run away with these negative things or the feeling of overwhelm, take that breath and think of something you're grateful for. And you'll notice how just that small shift in focus makes you feel, even if it's just a little lighter. Gratitude doesn't mean suppressing your feelings. It's okay to acknowledge that something is hard while still finding something to be grateful for. They don't negate each other. This balance is what helps us to stay grounded. It's about honoring the full spectrum of our emotions, the hard, the beautiful, and everything in between. And if you're not feeling particularly grateful right now, that's okay too. Gratitude is a practice. Like I just said, we learn it. And some days it's easier than others, but it's not about forcing yourself to feel a certain way, but about gently reminding yourself that there is more to see. Even when the view feels dark, there is something to see that you can be grateful for. It's not about making yourself change a feeling or making yourself do something different necessarily. It's just a gentle reminder through the hard that there is good. So as we continue through this time, let's try to find those moments of gratitude, not to dismiss our struggles or the hard things, but to add depth to our story. Let's use gratitude to bring a little more balance, to give ourselves a moment of light when everything else feels heavy. I promise you, it does help. It does work. I would love to hear from you. What is one thing that you are grateful for today? It doesn't have to be big. Sometimes the smallest things hold the most meaning. So I would love if you share it with me, and let's lift each other up. I want to encourage you one small grateful moment at a time. And as we move through this season, through the rebuilding, through the helping, the balancing of what life is still asking of us, Remember to give yourself grace. Remember that being a radiant woman doesn't mean shining brightly outwardly all the time. Sometimes it means just holding your light close until you're ready to shine outward again. I see you. I'm with you. And we're in this together. Be kind to yourself this week. Find those small moments of rest, of joy, of gratitude. And let's continue to support one another as we walk this path. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If this episode resonated with you, whether you're through a storm, a physical storm, or an emotional one, or any different kind of storm in your life, I would love for you to share this with a friend who might need to hear these words. Together, we can lift each other up, even in the most overwhelming of times. Until next time, stay radiant.